In this video, I'm going to cover a framework and how to easily close more sales. My name is Paul Leon. I'm a sales enablement training expert who's trained over 2,000 people whose methodologies have actually influenced over $100 million in revenues. So here's what we're going to start with, the letter C. So in the letter C, we always want to start with clarify why we're there. And to keep it really simple, we'll frame this from the perspective of an inbound lead because they're typically the easiest to convert because there's a reason they showed up. So the two biggest obstacles that I see under clarify why in the close framework is number one is I want more information, and number two is what's the price. Those are typically going to be the biggest thing. And in training over thousands of people, that's usually the common denominator in those conversations. So if you're familiar with my previous content, the best way to handle any obstacle is with another question. So I'd like more information. What information are you looking for? Always be empowering the customer and getting their why peeled back. A big trap that a lot of new people fall into is they think we have to go into answering that question. And here's a couple key things you have to remember. Unfortunately, even if you're a master at what you do, or you're an expert, doctor, whatever, and this is going to sound super tough, and maybe if you're a doctor, there might be an exception there. But typically, prospects believe everything they say and nothing you say, regardless of years of experience. I work with people with masters, I work with people with PhDs, and I work with people with none of those things. And they all have the same exact challenge, is that they feel like customers don't believe them based on their credentials alone. And there's some truth to that. So that's why it's important to start with C and start with clarify why. When we go to the L in the closed framework, we want to leverage feature and benefits. So there is an old saying, idiom, that a salesperson with strong selling skills can outdo a product person. And I actually do personally believe that. My old mentor, where we would go on consultations to sell $2,500 tickets to training, that would be something that would really resonate with people. So what I'm going to say next is not to discount anything my old mentor taught me, but I want to level it up. So, original statement, a person who has strong selling skills can outsell a person with all the product knowledge in the world. Now, I do believe that on some level, and I'm going to level up that statement by saying this. A person with strong selling skills and product knowledge in terms of how to identify which features and benefits can help the customer, help the prospect, is unstoppable. So that's why the L is so critical. Whenever I'd start with a new company, the first thing I would want to do, even though I had strong selling skills, and even though you may have strong selling skills, the advantage you'll have is you want to learn the product front to back, back to front. You want to know each of those features, what it does, why it's important. And the more intricate the product, the more time you'll need to invest. Like just today, I had spent over 4 hours on online learning modules with a product. And honestly, some of them started to blend together and feel kind of tertiary, but that's okay because what's happening is I'm breathing, I'm living and putting my brainwashing hat on to know this product front to back. And it's important to do that to be able to leverage the L in this closed framework, which is leverage features and benefits. Which ones specifically are going to help a prospect, especially in your target market? The O is for outline problems. So I want to speak to this real quick. So when I say outline problems, I don't want you to be the problem, obviously, for those who are a little more seasoned in this information. I mean, we need to outline what current problems they want to avoid. Now, here is the next important piece. When you're doing closing or your discovery, you're looking for current problems right there that you can solve. And here's where a lot of salespeople miss this, and I'm guilty of this too. You want to look for future problems too. Here's why. Because if you can pull stuff to help them avoid into the future, it allows your price via in the proposal stage to not be as big of a shock because of how good of a consultant you are. Now, we can always do discussions on price, and I might make a separate video on that in the future. But for this specific video on the close framework, we want to ensure that we outline their problems, but we're looking for current and future problems. So if you're a financial person, you might give them some options to help where they're at currently and what it does in the future to help them be able to maybe invest more money in your firm. Might be like a low level example. I pulled that example because a good financial planner I finally had to work with, and I wish I had done this earlier in my life, talked to me about what future problems it would avoid if I picked these types of plan for my own personal life. So the S is solutions to problems. So not only do we want to outline the problems looking for current and future, we need to know what solutions we can specifically bring to each problem, which is why I had mentioned earlier the importance of leveraging the features and benefits of the product. So again, we'll go back with that one example. He said, this is how it will help you financially to take this package. And he said, from this date range into that date range. And it could be a trinket or something else that possibly you're selling. But whatever it is, that's fine. Okay. But what is important is that you know the specifics and be able to listen and identify. So you always have that knowledge of feature and benefits as your card. For example, when I was growing up, I used to be into this show Yu-Gi-Oh! And there was always magic cards, there were trap cards, and there were monster cards. So you always want to make sure you have your trap cards, as they call it, where it's like, oh, okay, I see you had this specific problem. Well, this actually, trap card, is actually a solution to that. So the last one, and this is one that I think we really want to embrace here, is you want to easily help them buy. That's the E in the closed framework. And I really think of all the letters in this framework, easily help them buy is probably the most important one. And sometimes, a lot of the times in my training and other trainings I attend, they'll talk about financing, especially with big high ticket items. Not because they're trying to make money at all on like credit. That's not the point. They do it because financing is directly connected to help people easily buy. So if what you're doing, whatever it may be, what you should obsess about, and I obsess about, is being able to find ways to make it transactionally possible, easily as possible for them just to give you money so they can just feel like they have their solution faster. Because there's so much sales content out there, and I'm guilty of consuming probably too much at times instead of just obsessing about this, about like all these fancy questions. And even as a disc trained certified person, it's like, oh, reading the behavior, dating your customers. And it can get sometimes to the point, it's like, when do you have the time to just help someone buy? And the reality is, I'll give you a really easy example of this. So, when I used to work in the communications world, I learned this hack from an old friend of mine. He used to have a cheat sheet, and I believe in cheat sheets in terms of when you're selling. And he had his bundles, and everybody had the same cheat sheet. It came from corporate that everybody was to use this. And the cheat sheets were not good or bad, but typically an average consultant could sell about 3 out of 10 conversations with the bundles in here. But for some reason, this one gentleman, Lewis, was actually doing like 5 out of 10, 7 out of 10, but we're all using the same cheat sheet. I was like, Lewis, what are you doing? So Lewis showed me that he added something, but he didn't say it, but he told me. And then I did the same thing. And I'm going to give you the same secret. He took his bundles that were easy to buy bundles, and some of them were like thousands of dollars, and some of them ranged in that. And he took the bundles, and all he did differently was list specifically what problems each bundle solved. So when he showed a prospect, here are your 3 choices. This one solves these problems. This one solves actually more problems. And this one will solve mostly all your problems. Here's the crazy thing. Not only was he selling over 5 out of 10, he was actually selling the most expensive one that had solved the most problems. And I really hope that micro story resonates with you in terms of really embracing this closed framework, because as you take clarify why, as you take leverage features and benefits, as you take outline problems, as you take solutions to the problems, and again, the last letter that I really want to stress with you, and I know it feels like a broken record, like, Paul, I get it, is easily help them buy. So if I were to give you any call to action of all the letters in this, is look back at your process and look at those action points as to where's the friction that if I removed it, it would help the customer buy easier.
Thanks for tuning in to the Persistent Managers Podcast, which helps managers and direct reports win faster. Join our podcast newsletter for more insights to win faster, completely free.